One thing I've been saying in talks is that I'm a death doula for patriarchy. My name is Amara Tabor-Smith. I am a choreographer, performance maker based here in the Bay Area, and I am an artist in residence at Stanford through TAPS. I started my dance career when I was 14 or 15 years old, and I ended up dancing in a company before I graduated from high school. That led me to move to New York and ended up dancing with a company called Urban Bushwomen. And it was after many years dancing with Urban Bushwomen that I decided to go back to school and get my MFA. Being with Urban Bushwomen, we often worked doing community-based projects, and it was always such a thrill to work with people who were non-dancers, coming up with amazing movement and creative ideas. And this took us around the country exploring with community members from several communities around the country. I think that was really a highlight. I got my MFA in dance through Hollins University, and I made a piece that was inspired by the Cuban artist Ana Mendieta, and that piece explored her life and her work and her death. And the making of that piece, which was my thesis, really changed the trajectory of my own artistic practice, and was out of that experience that I started referring to my work as conjure art. Conjure art is dance, performance, or any art-making practice that incorporates spiritual ritual in the making, and is doing so from a very experimental perspective with a deep respect for the spiritual tradition that an artist is drawing from. So they're incorporating ritual with deep knowledge, deep study, and or practice in that tradition, and bringing it into their art-making practice with the express purpose of utilizing those rituals to make some sort of change, social, environmental, personal, collective. So one thing that I like to say about my art and my art making, or even my performance making, is that I am always seeking to blur the line between audience and performer. I call it a queering of the space. That's why I do site-responsive work, to get people out of the theater that creates a kind of relationship that we've become accustomed to. You're here, I'm there, I watch you, you perform for me. And where do we blur that line? How do we queer that space? How do we make that space an inclusive space for all of us to experience each other in a sense of coming together and having an experience of mutual vulnerability? One of the ways that my work sometimes will be misunderstood is that sometimes audience members can think, oh, I was involved in this ritual, in its traditional context. And that's not the case. And I make that clear, but that assumption is not uncommon. Though I am drawing from traditional rituals inside of specifically the Yoruba tradition, which is a tradition that I practice, I am not utilizing rituals in their traditional context. I am drawing from them based on my knowledge as to what I can experiment with, and then I create ritual based on that for a specific performance piece, for example. And I find that that's my challenge to figure out how to grapple with and to make clear in the process. So it's all a work in progress. I devote the rest of my life, my teaching and my art practice, to living in the world, or making the world a more hospitable environment for all of us, and using my art to do it. Art can be used to change the world.